Your family will hurt you in little, unnoticeable, minor, quote unquote, minor ways, which in the long run will break you and will affect you for the rest of your life. And these are usually the little things, the minor things, or the unnoticeable things. These are things that most people would just tell you to like get over it, and not even in like a harsh way, like in a way as to say it wasn't that much of a big deal. And this would be true if this was a once off. You know what I mean? Like somebody just don't know. Let me just make like a minor example of like, oh yeah, like my sister annoys me when she doesn't get her plate and take it to the sink, and just leaves like her plate lying around. If it's like a once off thing or every now and again, and I mean a while again, that it happens, it wouldn't really be a big deal. But the problem is with a dysfunctional family, with a toxic family, with a possibly emotionally, verbally abusive family, and in my case, a narcissistic family, it happens over and over again. It's repeated behavior, it's a patterned behavior, and that is emotionally and mentally unhealthy for you because it happens over and over and over again. It happens so much so that you can't even say anything about these little things that hurt you because it seems like you are the one who makes a mountain out of a molehill. You are the one who's always picking fights. But the reason you're always addressing something or you find yourself in cases where you are arguing about something is because that something hasn't changed. Because their behavior is continuous, it's repeated, and it never changes. So here are some of the little ways that my family has hurt me, and perhaps you could relate. The first one is like looking at their phone while you're talking to them. Interestingly, this is described as a narcissistic behavior because this is a way to dismiss you. While you are saying something, like my mother and my sister, they're just almost always on their phone, but dare I be on my phone while they're talking? Or I mentioned in another episode, like we were watching a show, those kind of shows that you watch together as a family, and I was on my phone. And my mother pointed that out, and how I'm like not supposed to be on my phone while we're watching the show, yet they are always on their phones. In fact, they are always on their phones, so much so that sometimes I find myself being the only one watching the show, and then they ask me what just happened, which is annoying. Anyway, so they look at their phone while you're talking to them. So it's one thing that they look at their phone perhaps when you're watching something or doing something together, and then they're going to come back and ask you what just happened or what did they miss, which is annoying because if you didn't want to miss anything, you should have paid attention. But they will also be on their phone while you're talking to them. So in a case where you're not really watching something together or really doing something together, but you were just talking to them or just wanted to say something to them, not even something significant, not even like a serious sit down conversation, but like maybe you just remembered something or you saw something that you wanted to share with them, or you had something interesting that you just wanted to share with them, even if it's a joke. They have this dismissive behavior of just looking at their phone. And everything you knew in that moment kind of boils or feels neglected or feels disregarded. Like you feel it. You might not necessarily maybe get angry at the behavior at the moment, but it kind of does bug you and upset you. And that's the whole point. One of the things that I've been reading about narcissistic abuse is that narcissists, they want a reaction from you, any type of reaction, whether negative or positive. So even that reaction of just you being upset at the fact that they're not giving you attention, because now it's going to seem like you are begging for their attention. Should you point out that, hey, I'm talking to you, like, don't look at your phone. Like now it's going to be like, you're the one who's so needy. Now he's gonna be like, you are so needy. You need me to just let go of my phone and just give you all of my attention. Which in a healthy relationship would be a normal thing for someone to ask for you to not be on your phone. Excuse me. It would be a normal thing for someone to ask you to not be on your phone while they're talking to you. I mean, if I'm sharing something that's probably going to take like a minute or even less than 5 minutes, are you really going to die from not being on your phone for those few minutes? So this is a very dismissive behavior where they just kind of like dismiss you or make you feel some type of way, a way that's just saying almost like, you're not that important that I'm going to look away from my phone, even if it's just for a few minutes. So you can talk while I'm on my phone, obviously concentrating on something else. It's a very annoying and very upsetting. But this is one of the little ways, or something unnoticeable, or something that a lot of people consider minor. And usually those people who would say, oh, that's not a big deal. Like, yeah, I also look at my phone. Yeah, that's because you're also part of the problem. Someone who thinks that it's not a big deal if someone cannot look away from their phone just for a few minutes while I'm talking to them, that means they also display that bad behavior, because it's bad behavior. I don't necessarily want to say it's toxic, but like I said, if this behavior is continuous, it's repeated, and it has happened for a long time, and it's something that always happens, then it becomes toxic. Because if just that one time, maybe I was talking to my mother or my sister and they were looking at their phones. Like, the crazy thing is, these people will make you feel crazy, because then it seems like, excuse me, ooh, my voice. Okay, sorry, so sorry, I'm back. But the crazy thing is, they will make you feel crazy, because it will be like you are making a big deal of them being on their phone, but you are not crazy, because if they were on their phone, maybe just that one time, maybe there was like that one time when I was talking to my sister, and maybe she just really had, like, she was focusing on something on her phone. But because this is not a once off thing, you know like, this is not a once off thing. You are not complaining about something that happened once in 1994. You are complaining about something that has happened since 1994. You get the difference. So that then becomes toxic, bad behavior. Another way they will kind of dismiss you or hurt you is playing sleepy or yawning. So this is something that I particularly started to notice when my family and I, because we're a family of believers. So when COVID started, we started sharing verses. So we are from a family that prays together, right? So we've always prayed together. There's always been a certain time that's allocated to praying. There have been times where we kind of just like really didn't do that, but then we'd always try to get back on track. So when COVID started, we actually started sharing verses, which was something we did not do. So we decided that, each person can like prepare a verse on their specific day to share a verse, and then in the evenings when it's prayer time, we'll start by sharing a verse and then discussing it, and then we pray. So I started noticing this side more so with my mom. My sister also does do it sometimes. It's not as bad as my mother's yawning. So my mother, when we are sharing, if it's me or my sister, she will yawn, she will be sleepy, and it's annoying because when I addressed this, because it got to a point where it was really just affecting me, because I was just like, what is happening? Why, when I'm sharing, it seems like, or sometimes she would just look away, like, or seem like she's looking at something just in order to not focus on you, just in order to dismiss you, just in order to make you feel like what you're sharing is not important or what you're saying is not, I don't know, it's just not important. And when I addressed this, her excuse, and this was an excuse because it wasn't a valid reason. She said, yeah, I come back from work and I'm tired and sometimes I am sleepy. Listen, do not disregard what you know to be true. I know my mother when she's tired, okay? And I can tell. And in times when she really is tired, she doesn't put on that whole act of yawning and being sleepy and looking away. So I know what an act and what something that's real looks like. Because that's the thing with emotional abusers. They will confuse you in such a way that you feel like, I don't know what's what. You know? Maybe they, and then you start thinking, oh, maybe she was just tired. Maybe she did have a long day, but don't disregard your gut feeling. That instinct that told you in that moment while it was happening that this is a deliberate behavior. Like my mother does it deliberately when she's yawning or acting like she's so sleepy. It's a way to dismiss you or just make you feel like, yeah, what you're saying is not so important. Like I'm not really focusing. It's annoying. It is frustrating. It is so upsetting. And the fact that when I tried to address that, she said she comes back from work tired. It even annoyed me more because now you're making me seem like I'm a crazy person, like I don't know what's what. Because I know you when you're tired. It's the same thing I told my sister because my sister has this tendency, or had it, I hope she's changing, of just like, I don't know if it's a last born thing, but because I know my sister to be a bully and bossy, I don't really think it's because she's a last born. But she has this thing of just like, whenever like maybe mom buys something, and because we currently both at home, my mother's the only one who's buying things. So maybe she buys like snacks or fruits. She has this thing of just wanting to be the one who distributes, as if like she's the, what do you call those people who just like take care of things around the home? Like people who are hired, a caretaker. I don't know, but she likes to like distribute things as if she's the actual mother. She will hog, like this one time it was about grapes. Like she took the grapes and wanted to be the one who distributes. And when I took the grapes without her permission, I guess, she got annoyed and just like, in her words, she said she was making a joke, but it wasn't. She said to my mother, she's taking our grapes. Whereas when my mom buys something, it's for everyone in the house. It's not just for her and my mother, or for her, or just like specifically for someone, unless there's a reason. And when I confronted her about that, she said she was just joking. Here's where my problem is. I know my sister when she's joking. Don't let people confuse you. Like, your family. You know your brother, you know your sister, you know your mother, you know your father. You know when they're joking. You know when they're playing. You know when they're tired. You know when something is real. And so for my sister to say I was just joking was even just more frustrating. Just like my mother saying she was just tired. It's even more frustrating because you are really undermining my intelligence. So you think I can't tell the difference between you really joking and you dismissing me? So I can't tell the difference between you being really tired and you just yawning for the sake of showing that you're bored. It's annoying. Don't let them disregard your intelligence. Don't let them disregard your gut feeling. If your gut feeling says the reason she was yawning is because she wanted to act bored or dismiss you, then go with that. Go with what your gut feeling tells you. Go with what your heart tells you. Okay? Because sometimes they can be really good at acting. you know? Like the acting might seem like, oh yeah, she is tired. But your heart tells you that no, she's actually not. This is just an act. So listen to your gut feeling. Okay? Another way they have of hurting you is overreacting. Let me just take a sip of my tea because my voice is acting up. Okay, I'm back. So they overreact. Oh, this is annoying. This has been one of the most annoying things that my family has done to me, and one of the most abusive things that they've done to me. And emotional abuse is such a tricky one to detect. You can go on for years being emotionally abused because sometimes my family isn't necessarily verbally abusive, because verbal abuse can contain things like maybe vulgar words, or like clear insults, I feel like verbal abuse can be more direct than emotional abuse. Emotional abuse might not necessarily be like a clear insult, but the way that it lands to you, the way that it feels, that's how you can almost tell that that's actually emotional abuse. That, like, things like backhanded compliment, because a backhanded compliment, a compliment that's not genuine, a compliment that you feel like kind of has some spice to it, it's not necessarily verbal abuse. It's more so emotional abuse, because what they said wasn't necessarily an insult, but it was abusive emotionally. So, with overreacting, my family would do this thing of exaggerating everything, almost everything that I do. For example, there was a time where I would have like migraines. So I bought pills to start taking them. And whenever they would just see me take a pill, they would act like now I'm taking pills every day. Oh my goodness, I don't know how to explain this. And I can't think of another example because I feel like that one might seem, I don't know, it might seem like it's not a big deal. But again, all these things that seem like they're not a big deal, if it's repeated behavior, if it happens over and over again, it's the frequency that makes it a big deal. The number of times that it happens, that is what makes it a big deal. If it's something that happens over and over again, it is a big deal. And it's probably affecting you mentally, emotionally. It's affecting your self-esteem. It's affecting your confidence. It's affecting you as a whole human being. So with overreacting, they just have this tendency of making me feel like I'm doing too much. Like, for example, like I like grapes. Even that one. I feel like all these examples are not going to be good, because I feel like a listener would think like, why are you making a big deal of that? But it is a big deal, because again, it happens over and over again. So with overreacting and exaggerating, they tend to make you feel like you are overdoing something when you are not. Let me make an example with green tea. So I started drinking green tea a couple of years ago because I read up that it helps with anxiety. So I started drinking green tea for that reason. And when I started, because I guess I can be obsessive at certain times when I do something. So maybe there's a bit of truth. But because they are not reasonable and truthful people, they then exaggerate. They will even exaggerate the truth. So when I started drinking green tea, I would drink it every day because I thought that's how it's going to help me. But then it started affecting my stomach. So then I started skipping days. So even when I started skipping days, like I would drink maybe green tea like on a Monday, and then the next time maybe I drink it on a Friday, they would act like, oh my word, you are drinking green tea all the time. The, what I've found with my family is that they have no truth in them. They are not truthful people, because if people can't acknowledge when you've changed, and this depends on what you've done, because it's not always the case where people, when you've changed, they have to just acknowledge that and accept that and regard that as something now that they can go with or accept. But for something as minor as me, like switching from drinking green tea every day to every other day, the fact that you saw me on Monday drinking green tea, and then you see me on Friday, and then you make a big deal out of it just because you saw me on those 2 days. I don't know. I feel like I'm not explaining this well, but it's frustrating for me, and it's the most annoying thing. Another way they will hurt you is by underreacting. Oh my goodness. Like, the contrast is unbelievable. So they will overreact in the dumbest of things, and then they will underreact in cases where they should be overreacting. Like, maybe you just achieved something, they will underreact to that. So now it's no longer a big deal, you know? But in a dumb thing as me drinking green tea, it was a big deal. Oh, you drink it every day. But now me achieving something is like, oh, okay. Oh, now it's not a big deal. Now, because even let's not even take it to achievements. There was this one time I played around with my eyebrows because I want to learn how to like draw eyebrows. I have fairly big eyebrows, but I just want to kind of shape them. So I would play around with like shaping my eyebrows. And this one time I just really did it. I did it. I was so proud of myself. And when I went to show my sister, she acted like she wasn't seeing what I'm talking about, because I just came to her and I said, look, because obviously when I say look, I'm expecting you to be looking at my face. So I'm expecting you to see what I've just done to my face. And it's not like I just did like a full makeup thing. I just did like my eyebrows. So that was the only thing that I did. Concealer, like added some what is it? Brow pencil. Yeah, all of those. I'm not good with makeup things. So, but it was obvious that I had done something to my eyebrows. And she just acted like she wasn't seeing what I'm talking about. And then when I told her that I did my eyebrows, I was like, oh, like, it's because you have big eyebrows, so I didn't even see that you had done anything. That's how I knew actually that they were good, because she couldn't even react to how good they were, because they are typically jealous people. So in times when they underreact or act like something is not a big deal, trust that it is. In times when they act like your achievement or something that you've done, even like with cooking, maybe like you cooked this bomb meal and you're like, yo, this food is so good, I did that. And then maybe you serve it to your family and they underreact and they act like, oh, it's just okay. You better know it is great. And they just can't utter the words out, because I guess they just can't allow themselves to compliment you or let you know that you did something good. Okay? Another way that they will hurt you is by minimizing your interests or hobby. I have started to hide a lot of things about myself when it comes to my family, because they will act like what you're interested. For example, another minor example, but again, as we've discussed, it's not minor if it's repeated behavior. So when I post something, because I'm the type of person who's into like deep conversations, like I listen to certain podcasts, I watch certain videos, YouTube videos. I'm into like deep, meaningful, thought-provoking conversations. And when I would find something interesting, I would like screen record or screen grab something and then share it on my WhatsApp status. And they would often have this reaction of like, oh, what is this? Like, so I post something on my status or on any social media platform, and then they'll act like they just don't understand, like what I posted or why I have interest in that. And it minimizes your own interests, you know? Because if someone is interested in what's something that I'm not interested, let's say fans, a fan, the one that blows cool air in your face, and someone has this fascination and interest in them. I obviously don't. Excuse me. I obviously don't have that interest, but it's not my place to dismiss. It's not my place. It's not anyone's place. In a perfect world, which we'll never have, in a perfect world, we would just kind of like embrace other people's differences. And I think I would even be fascinated by the fact that they are fascinated by a fan. Like, I would want to know what fascinates them, not in a in a way that makes them feel like they shouldn't be interested in that, because that is how my family makes me feel. When they ask me if I post something that I find interesting, that I think maybe other people will find interesting, or that I just want to share, that I just want to share on my social media space, when they ask me about it, it's not out of, like curiosity of, oh, why do you find that interesting? It's out of this place of making you feel like, yeah, that's boring. You shouldn't be interested in that. Even though that's not what they say, but that's how they make you feel. Like, why are you interested in that? Like, why did you post that? Like, my mother would even say, "Usifakeleni ethandeka la loku ukuthi." Like, she would be asking me, like, what are we as like my audience, I guess, like on my WhatsApp status, like, what are we supposed to be watching? And then you're like, you could just not open my statuses. You could just not like choose to not see my posts, because like now I have to explain myself to you, and not even because you're interested or genuinely want to know. It's just because you want to minimize my interests. Okay. Another thing they will do, they will have little to no tolerance for mistakes. Oh, this is the biggest one with my sister. Like, when my sister says something, maybe she was just telling you something, and then you didn't hear something, and you're like, what did you just say? She will just act like you're someone who doesn't listen, like, I don't know. I feel like my sister just doesn't like repeating herself, and it's not like I'm constantly always asking her to repeat. It's a human thing that sometimes somebody says something and you're like, come again. My sister will just lash out at you if you just say, come again. If you just ask her to repeat one word, one sentence. They have little tolerance for mistakes, and you always feel like you 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 gotta do things right. You gotta hear it right when it comes to them, because they have no tolerance for mistakes. They don't have your back but expect you to have theirs. Oh, they don't have your back. Like, the number of times my sister has not had my back, it is insane. One example, which also seems minor, but again, not minor if it's repeated behavior. One time, so there was a time where I was just looking for a job. I'm job hunting, and I decided to do it like physically, like submit CVs and all that. And then I knew I would not ask my sister to go with me, because I knew she would just not want to go with me. First of all, I think maybe she thinks it's like kind of embarrassing, I guess, to submit CVs that way. Of course, she wouldn't say this. She wouldn't admit that. But I think that's how she feels. But then this one other time, because I went with a friend, I did that. This one other time, we're in town, and I see these offices that I've never seen before. We are passing them. And then I say to her, I think I just want to just quickly check and just ask if they are currently hiring. Would you please come with me? And she said no. And she said like, oh, ngiyasaba. She didn't say no in a like a mean way, but she just said, mina ngiyasaba, like she's scared, which I didn't even understand because I was the one who was going to like be doing the asking. So I went in by myself, and I felt like in just that moment, in just that little thing, you didn't have my back. But here is where it's confusing. Just the other time, we went to this other church, not our church. We were just visiting because they had a revival, and she wanted to go to the bathroom. You know, when you're like somewhere, you know, where you're not familiar with, or you're not at your own church, and you just kind of feel like, oh, like me just standing up, and we're like seated in front. So like you kind of feel awkward to just get up and go to the bathroom because now you're like, oh, now people are gonna look at me. So I get that feeling. So in that moment, I think she had that feeling and was like, can you accompany me? Can you go with me to the bathroom? And I said no, deliberately, because my sister never has my back. That one small thing where I asked her to just enter with me to those offices, I would be doing the asking. I would be looking for the job. But she couldn't go in with me. But when she needs someone to go to the bathroom with because she's afraid that people are going to be looking at her, I have to have her back. Like, there are things that I just no longer do. And previously, oh, I would have been all in because I'm the type of person who really feels for someone, you know, like I can quickly put myself in someone's shoes. So when she was asking me to go to the bathroom with her, I quickly put myself in her shoes thinking, oh yeah, like, you know, this is like a different church. She's not familiar with the space. I would also feel like some type of way just having to walk by myself, you know, and then everybody looking at me. But I said no, because constantly my sister, over and over again, in the littlest of things, she never has my back. Okay? Another way that they will hurt you is by not responding when you say something. So this one, I think it also ties to like them looking at their phone. There are times when I will say something, you know, when you say something that's rhetorical, something that doesn't necessarily need a response, but out of I don't know, human courtesy, you say something like somebody says, I don't know, I'm just not having a good example, but maybe say you're watching a show and you're just like, or maybe like I know with like South African shows, like South African soapies and dramas, they can drag a storyline or a certain scene. So maybe I just say, ugh, we've watched this for so long, it's boring now. And they just keep quiet. You know, like they almost want to make you feel like, oh yeah, like you just said something and we're not gonna like pay mind to what you just said. Because what I just said doesn't necessarily need a response. But if it were me, I would just say, oh yeah. Or maybe I would even respond if it's not boring me. I would say, I don't find it boring. I think it's still interesting. They would just do this thing of just like, sometimes just like keeping quiet, as if like you are sitting on your own and no one's there. But they don't expect you to do that when they are speaking. But now I do it. Like it's annoying and I don't want to be this person, but at the same time, I don't want to be a fool. So I'm not going to do things for you that you don't do for me. Okay? Relationships are a two-way street. So I'm at a point, and it took me forever to get to this point because I'm a people pleaser. Okay? I've been pleasing my family for years. And I really care about like affecting people or leaving people hanging. But I'm at a point where I'm just like, I don't care. You don't do it for me, I'm not going to do it for you. So let's leave it at that. So I'm at a point where I just sometimes also keep quiet just for the sake of just like, yeah, you also don't respond to me sometimes. So this is where we are. It's petty, it's childish, but this is where I am. This is where they've pushed me to be. Okay? I think I'll make another episode because I'm thinking of other things, other little things, other unnoticeable things that your family does to hurt you. So I think I'll probably make another episode. But just to finish this off, another way could be they get annoyed when you don't understand something. This goes back to what I said about my sister, like having to repeat one word. Like they quickly get annoyed at you. They make you feel like you are bragging or that you think you are better than them whenever you're sharing something good that has happened in your life. You feel like you are bragging. You feel like they make you feel like you think you are better than them, but that's not how you feel. That's how they make you feel, because that's how they feel about themselves, and that's how they are. When they are sharing something that has happened in their life, they are usually bragging. So they are projecting, and they are super major projectors. But I'm just gonna leave that. Projectors? Is it projectors? Yeah, but I'm just gonna leave it here for now. I'll probably make another episode